Hello, all. So, I just got back from seeing Madame Web in theaters. And I know that my YouTube videos are not the best. They're on the poor side. They're just me talking at a camera and posting it online, and that's it, and that's all. Definitely not the best. Definitely not. But I felt a need to post a review on Madame Web because it might legitimately be the only positive review that this movie will get. And spoilers, I'm giving the film an 8.5 out of 10. So if you want to hate me, you don't have to watch the rest of the video. You can just hate away. So first off, I think the trailer was a solid trailer. There was a lot of random hate. If you're new to the interwebs, a trailer for Madame Web dropped a couple months back, and there was a lot of hate, and I don't even understand why. It seemed like a good movie in my point of view, and none of the hate even explained itself. It all felt very, very, very random to the point where I just didn't even know what was going on and was honestly confused. Now, the reviews, I don't think they're part of some kind of propaganda campaign. I think the reviews, for the most part, obviously not all of them, obviously there's some fake ones out there, but I do feel that most reviews that I saw that were in the negative were being fully honest and had every right to dislike the film. And I don't have any ill feelings, and I'll even go over why I think they disliked it. But I liked it, and I think it's a solid, solid film. So, first off, the cons, and well, actually, first off, the plot. So, Madame Web, if you somehow do live under a rock, which I'd like to live under that rock with you because the world kind of sucks. But, anyways, if you do, the plot for Madame Web is main character Cassandra Webb has dreams of the future, visions of the future, where she sees herself and three other people being brutally murdered by a sadistic killer of some kind over and over and over again. It turns out that these visions of the future are fully legitimate, and this guy is literally hunting them down to kill them systematically. Then it turns out that he's hunting them down to kill them systematically because he has visions of the future himself, where he foresees them becoming heroes and killing him accidentally, but still killing him in an attempt to stop him. So he's basically killing them before they kill him in a bizarre form of self defense. And these actions will somehow result in them becoming the heroes they are destined to be, which will result in his death. So he's accidentally killing himself, but he's not meaning to. He's not meaning to. But, anyways, yeah, he's hunting them down to kill them before they eventually become heroes and stop him. Self defense in a bizarre sense. That's your basic plot. The cons of this movie. So, first of all, the opening, the first 10 minutes, feels kind of out of place, and like it's just explaining plot points that the rest of the movie already covers. Like, for example, about midway through the film, there's a flashback that literally covers all the plot points that the opening explains, therefore making the opening completely pointless. It really does feel like Sony added this opening at the very last minute. I'm guessing because of all the backlash to the trailer, they got a bit anxious and tried to dumb the film down, thinking maybe it was just too highbrow or something silly like that. P.S. It's not that highbrow at all. But anyways, it really feels like the opening's just to re-explain everything that is better explained later on in the film, making it feel a bit out of place. Con number two is the villain, arguably one of the more important aspects of this film, has a lot of dialogue where he's not looking at the camera, and his dialogue is legit just plot points. So once again, it feels like this was added at the last minute to once again try to dumb down the film. No one talks in plot points, but he does, so it feels rather out of place, like he's not really an actual person, like he's talking down to the viewer quite often. So yeah, the villain doesn't work too well because of this out of place dialogue. I think the actor himself is fine, and I think he does a very good job. It's really just this out of place dialogue that's clearly was added at the last minute, because every time he has one of these plot point lines, you legit don't see his mouth move. It legit feels like it was taped at a different time. So I don't hold it against the actor. I think he did a good job, and I think there's a original cut of this film where he's next to a silent killer, basically in tribute to the slasher films that clearly inspired him. And I'd love to see that cut. I really would. I really would love to see that cut if I could. Last of the cons is that there is some poor CGI. Not horrible, but a little bit on the poor side for CGI here and there, specifically in the opening, specifically related to spiders. You'll know it when you see it. But thankfully, 90% of the special effects of this movie are wonderfully practical and very well handled. But there is weak CGI, uh, villain with weak dialogue that feels out of place, and the opening that is very out of place, all in the first 10 to 15 minutes. And if you went into this movie assuming it would be bad because of the backlash, and then saw those first 15 minutes that have a lot of poor elements, it's going to make you dislike the rest of the movie. You see all that bad stuff right at the beginning, you're going to dislike the rest of the movie. That's why I think the reviews that dislike the film, I understand where they're coming from. You see an opening that's on the weak side when you thought this movie might be weak, it's going to create a bit of a bias there, and it's going to be very hard for a movie to recover. But I held off on my judgment and allowed the film to go at its own pace. And once you get to the 20-minute mark, this movie starts to get its footing properly. And then from there on in, it just gets better and better and better and better. I love, I can't emphasize this enough, I love films that try to blend together different genres that don't typically get blended together. That tries to mix different things in film literature that just shouldn't work, to just see what will happen. This movie is basically an 80s style slasher flick, like Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street, because you got a killer systematically hunting people and killing them off one by one, mixed with a sci-fi flick, much in the vein of Terminator, because they're all having visions of the future and trying to edit the future. So, sci-fi flick, mixed with a obvious superhero film, because they all eventually become superheroes, and that's the future that the main villain is trying to avoid. Mixed with a tribute film to old school 2000 superhero flicks, specifically CW, DC, Smallville kind of stuff, the original X-Men and the original Spider-Man, for example. And specifically, it really does feel at times like old school DC, CW, like Smallville and the original Arrowverse. Really feels like that at times. It takes all these different elements, which should definitely not work together, and it just blends them all together. And it somehow, despite all reason and logic, works really well. It legit pulls it off. This is extremely skilled and very smart blending of different genres that should just not work, and it somehow makes it work. It is very solid in that aspect. And I just love that kind of stuff. I just honestly do. Added to that, I felt all the future visions were immensely creative. The film does a great job of putting you in the shoes of the lead and is very smart and creative with its visions of the future, and then with the characters scrambling to try and make sure that things don't play out in quite that way. It's at first very jarring, but purposely so, because it's trying to put you in the main person's shoes who doesn't know what's going on. And it's filmed all in very creative techniques to pull this off. There's a lot of creativity and smartness going into the filming techniques, and a lot of creativity and smartness with the future visions and with the scrambling to solve the problems that come from the future visions. There's just a lot of intelligence that is from that. Added to that, I can't emphasize how much, ignoring the main villain, but how much the main cast knocks it out of the park. They all just bring their A game, and they have a whole lot of chemistry amongst each other. these characters like bounce off each other so well. Like there's so many great, well handled scenes between these four lead women as they just bounce off each other with their dialogue. Um, like I kind of wish this was a old school CWDC show way back when Smallville was a thing. Because I would love this thing. I would love watching this every day. Well, every other day as it played on TV. I would love it. I would love it. I would get the whole series on DVD because it really feels like that kind of chemistry and they kind of recapture that feel. Oh, for good or for bad, they do a perfect job doing it. Um, and the chemistry between these actresses is, oh, they do a fantastic job. And I also feel that the ending just ends on such a high and like fist pumping kind of note that it's hard not to end the movie with a bit of a smile on your face. The ending is solid. And on top of all this, it has a great ongoing theme on the importance of found family, which I realize isn't the smartest theme, but considering that it has that theme on top of all the other elements is impressive any way you want to cut it. Like the fact that it's just juggling all these plates, spinning all these plates, as well as having an intricate and well done, very well done theme on found family is really, really like admirable that they did just pulled all this stuff off. So that is why I am very comfortable giving this a solid 8.5 out of 10. I realize the flaws that I mentioned at the beginning can be seen by many as significant, but I honestly feel that if you can just push back past those first 10 minutes and give this movie half a shot, it ends up knocking out of the park. And this feels like in 10, maybe 20 years, this will be considered a bit of a cult classic. And everybody will be like, man, I wish I saw that just one extra time to get this movie a proper money. Um, I'm not sure if a sequel would have ended up being good. I don't think this movie will make bank. I think, the backlash will sink in and probably it will not break even. But it should because it's good, in my honest opinion. Once again, I feel that it is understandable to dislike the film given the cons that I listed off, but I think the pros and what was pulled off here was solid. And I know what you're thinking. I emphasized a bit about the slasher horror elements, and yes, this is a PG 13. Yes, there are two scenes with blood. Though a significant amount of blood, there are no real epic kill scenes here. It is a PG 13. But I will say, with the future visions of their deaths and how it keeps re-showing them and how it uses those visions of the future and their future deaths to build tension, the movie does do a very good job of building tension and then disorienting you with how the visions are handled. And that's where I feel the horror elements come from and come from very well. So I don't think the rating hampered it. And I think it does still do a good job of the horror elements and works as a good tribute to them. Nowhere near as violent, obviously, but still a good tribute. And once again, a blending of all these different genres and also wonderfully well. So, in my honest opinion, it is a good film. And I will also say it has a wonderfully sarcastic sense of comedy that had me chuckle quite a couple of times. Not hardcore throughout, but a nice, soft, wonderful chuckle on top of everything, like a nice little cherry on top of a sundae. So, I would say if you can see it and support this film, it is worth your time. If you can just get through that opening, you'll realize this is actually a good movie. So, see it, and if you feel like rebuting my point of view, which you can, feel free to post below. You'll probably be one of the only people that sees this video if you do. But tell me how you felt about Madame Web, and I hope you enjoyed it too. Take care, and good night.